My name is Monika Jones. I'm a news anchor at German international broadcaster DW. I also host conferences and moderate conferences. I'm very happy to be here with you all today, in person again. It's actually, I have to be quite honest, still something I have to get used to again. And I'm always happy when I see one or two people still wearing masks. I'm like, yep, you know, better safe than sorry. But it's good to have you all here. And of course, time is never on our side. The clock's already running here. So this panel that I'm going to introduce you now to is called Leadership and Innovation for Sustainable Business. And as we all know, you have three mega buzzwords in that title already: leadership, innovation, and sustainability. I'm trying to break these buzzwords down now with the panelists to find out what are we actually talking about here, and how do you face those buzzwords and actually put them into action and make them tangible for your company, for your business strategy, and for the employees. I would like to, one after the other, ask my panelists onto the stage, and once they're all sat, I can tell you a little bit more about them. We also have one panelist who is joining us online. So I would like to start welcoming Ilka Horstmeier. She, of course, is member of the Board of Management of BMW, in charge of human resources and director of labor relations. A very warm welcome. Yes, and we have names on every seat. They thought of everything. I would also like to welcome Klein. He is CEO and member of the executive board of SAP. And that is this chair. I would like to welcome Quintane. He is an associate professor of organizational behavior at ESMT Berlin. There he is. And last but not least, and I'm actually going to move this chair very slightly because I would like to be able to see the face of the gentleman who's going to join us online, and that's Heyo Kroemer. And hopefully he will actually show up. Right now, all I see is dots. In case he joins us, it's Heyo Kroemer. He's professor and CEO of the Charité, and of course, a member of the German government's expert commission advising politicians on COVID-19 measures to help fight the pandemic. If he pops up, and there he is. Hello, good to have you with us.
Pleasure to be here.
No, just on cue. So very good to have you with us. We see you, we hear you. That's fantastic. So let me just briefly elaborate on the other panelists as well. So Ilka Horstmeier, I was looking you up and I found out that in an interview with the Augsburger Allgemeine, my hometown, by the way, that's probably why I found it. You said that it's important to manage both current crises and future topics equally well to give employees a feeling of security. Employees who work for companies, but they trust people. An important leadership quality is empathy.
I said that, yes.
You said that. You stand by that.
It's true.
Okay.
And I believe in this. I truly believe in this. Being 28 years in the company already, I've seen a lot of transformation. I've been in production 20 years of these, almost 30 years. And I think if people follow you, you have a good chance. And I think that is for all of our companies, because we all exist quite long, that people make the difference in these transformations. And if you take them with, then you have a good chance. And this is all about leadership.
And so empathy actually helps you when it comes to a sustainable business transformation.
I think yes, and especially in these times where people are really touched by COVID, first of all, and now are very much touched by the war. We see that people really need their leaders to talk to them, to, of course, talk to their colleagues. And I see a lot of people coming back to the office just to have the chance not to get infused by all the television reports every day during maybe home office sessions or in between, and coming back to the office to get just that feeling of normality and that there's a perspective of going ahead.
Klein. I also have a bit more information. I couldn't find an interview with you, Certainly not one that would sort of somehow fit there, but I can share with everyone that in your role as CEO, you hold the overall responsibility for the corporate strategic direction, management and performance of SAP. And until July 2021, you were also SAP's Chief Operating Officer leading SAP's transformation, that was the word, into an intelligent enterprise to the benefit of both customers and employees. I would like you to elaborate on that. How is SAP basically helping the transformation into an intelligent enterprise to the benefit of both customers and employees?
Yeah, so first of all, when you are a technology company, it's always helpful when you use your own technology. Yeah, so that was my former job, because when my customers, buy our software, they would love to see, oh, how is SAP running with this technology and how is it changing, how it is helping with the transformation. And look, when you look at SAP, we have our 50th anniversary already. That's quite a long time in the technology industry.
And we're still talking of new technologies there.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. And now it's changing so much, because when you look at new technology on artificial intelligence, blockchain, we are doing certain things here with Siemens, BMW, Daimler, and Catena X, the traceability making supply chains more resilient. When you look into an enterprise, I mean, how many retailers had to switch overnight in the times of COVID to e-commerce, personalized supply chains? You have to deliver the stuff right at, to the front door of each house. And this is SAP, and we want to give this technology, we want to give these companies this intelligence to still run their business in a complete digitized way. And then, of course, it's also about automation. There are a lot of things what people do in finance, in procurement, in HR, which they did for a very long time, and we shifted a lot of tasks to shared service centers. Now, actually, there is technology for that. Yeah? So we can automate these type of activities. We can automate together with Siemens factories. And this is what an intelligent enterprise is about, to know more about the consumer, to help to deliver a better experience for employees. And and this is what SAP is doing day in and day out.
What kind of feedback do you get? Happy customers only?
Yeah, I have to say, look, especially the German press is sometimes very critical, and there are some SAP projects, let's face it, who are not doing so well. But I always then ask the question, when we have 400,000 customers, and for 99% of them, the technology runs, why is this 1% where it's not running? And it has to do a lot with culture. When you are switching, your sales channels, when you are automating certain processes, there is also a cultural change which needs to happen. You have to have your leadership behind it. The software, the technology can do a lot, but only if you connect the end users, if you connect the processes to the systems. And this is something what I would say where SAP is, of course, needs to be there. We need to share our best practices. So in 99% of the cases, it works beautifully. And in 1%, we have to help and can still do better.
Okay. Eric Quintane, I said Associate Professor of Organizational Behavior at the ESMT in Berlin, and your research work focuses on understanding the dynamics of interpersonal networks and their consequences for individuals. As an example, consequences could be creativity or burnout. What is your experience, or what are your findings in your research when it comes to innovation, the transformation to sustainable business? How does that impact the people who carry it out? Does it make them more creative, or?
So I think we've been hearing a lot about the transformation process and understanding that this can be a psychologically difficult process for a lot of employees, and we've been talking about culture and the role of leaders in building that culture. And what I've been doing in my research has been also trying to understand how organizations can address and assess the extent to which their employees are exposed to burnout, which is a very strong stress syndrome. And so the idea that I've been trying to develop and understand is how can we have those transformation process, transitions, that in a way that is less taxing for employees in developing their burnout. And especially trying to understand ways in which we can measure burnout more fluidly, more easily, using innovations, using digital tools, so that we're able actually to pinpoint areas of the organizations that could require more attention from their leaders, more empathy, for example, so that these areas are being cared of, these employees are being cared of, so that there is less burnout emerging in that specific part of the organization.
Well, I would like to know from Professor Kroemer, who, in his capacity and obviously with his entire team at the Charité, there was an awful lot of unwanted transformation thrust upon you over the last 2 years with having to handle the pandemic and the fallout from the pandemic. Professor Kroemer, how did you motivate your team, your employees to first of all, deal with what was happening with this major change, and in what way did, well, you know, new treatments, new technologies, if you like, in what way did that help handling the situation?
Well, I think this major transition process started already prior to Corona. Because we were in the midst, like Roland Busch told that before, in the midst of a demographic change, which is paralleled by an unprecedented progress in medicine. And so we were challenged before already to a large extent. And one of the only solutions we were driving for was technology such as digitalization. And now on top of that, we had first Corona, and as you know, we are all also somewhat busy due to the war in Ukraine. So there's a complex mix overall, and the way to address it in the organization is that you try a bit as far as it's possible to be in front of the development, and this moves in two ways. One is people. You have to really closely interact with your people, keep them informed. We had really new ways of informing our workforce during the Corona crisis. And the other hand, the other thing is really to rely and set and develop in terms of technology. And only with that combination, you can manage to go through things. If it works at the end, we will see, because it's, as I said, it's a continuous challenge, in particular in healthcare. You know, healthcare is said to be the car industry of the future in Germany because of the request coming from our population. And we really have to think about how to deal with these things, in particular in view of the demographic change, which will hit us hard during the next 5 to 6 years. So there's really no time to be lost in terms of developing new strategies and coping with these problems.
Professor Kroemer, thank you so much for that. And you also were drawing a lot of comparisons already to the car industry, obviously also because of the welcome address of Ole Kalenius. And obviously with Ilka Horstmeier, we do also have a representative of the car industry here on stage. And the transformation process certainly started much earlier than 2 years ago. Electromobility is a big topic as well. How has the staff, how have the employees of BMW been able to go along with all the changes? Is that something that they embrace? Is that something that needs to be communicated to them? Is there a fallout from the innovation that they actually feel, perhaps in their pocket, perhaps in their daily hours? And how do you make it acceptable?
That's really a complex question. I think, how much time do we have? 18 minutes? No. I think, first of all, people have to understand the why they have to change and why things are changing. And I think the last 2 years we spent a lot of time in explaining things, the current situation, and what are we heading for with regard to strategy. And Roland Busch already touched it, to have a strategy and to give people perspective, to always show how the steps are going on to that strategy is very important. So it's both. You have to communicate the current situation, and I think now it's quite important too, with the gas situation coming up, etc. So the next crisis is already coming, and you always have to give the perspective for the future. And in the transformation itself, I think you have to make the decisions well in advance. That's our understanding. So we decided, for example, in 2020 to close down our engine plant in our plant Munich. And it's the oldest engine plant of BMW. I was, by the way, the head of that plant in former times, and I know the identification of the people with the engines they are producing there. So we had the challenge to communicate this properly, tell people, okay, now we have to transform this plant into an electric plant for the next generation of our cars. This leads to the fact that the engine plant has to move away. And by the way, maybe in the future there will be less combustion engines. So it's a good move to do it right now. And we have a perspective for you to go into our component plants in Dingolfing and also to our other engine plants, of course. So I think, first of all, you have to communicate the why, and then you have to do it very professionally and tackle the people. Because once you can't make a corporate decision on the basis of the opinions of everybody. Yeah? But once you have made a decision, you have to take care of everyone. And this is for us a principle in that transformation that we have to look at, and this is what we're doing very carefully.
And that taking care of everyone also means that you either offer them alternatives, as you just mentioned, or the possibility to undergo training in order to actually fit into the new strategy. How has that been accepted?
I think there's no option of not taking our current people with. Of course, you can't take everyone with. Some will retire during this period of time, but with the shortage of people coming up, workforce coming up, I think we have to take our people with, qualify them. We invested we trained more than 50,000 people since 2009 in electromobility. We're training a lot of people in other digital competences, and I think that's the way how to do it. And some people often ask, is assembling an electrical engine so much different from a combustion engine? Of course it's different, but the process technologies, the know-how about how to run a production is pretty similar. And that's the reason why we believe that it's quite important to do it this way. And that starts with the fact that at the moment where you make decision on future technologies or future transformations, you have to think about the product, the process, the people at the same time.
And of course, you need the people. You need the people with the skills, with the know-how. And we all know that in Germany, for a long time now, we've been talking about a shortage. And now some even speak of a crisis of just not enough skilled people around. And on top of that, Eric Quintane, I would like to know from you, on top of that, after 2 years of the pandemic, a lot of employees have started to reflect upon the kind of work-life balance they've had so far. And there has been a recent survey, actually, where people, and it goes all the way up to management. So it's not just your worker, the employee here and there, and somebody in an office. It's going all the way up to management saying, actually, this 9 to 5, this having to go to the office, is not my thing. And it is met, let's say, diplomatically with mixed feelings from the company most of the time. What do you advise? I mean, when we talk about leadership, should management, should companies say, it's just a phase, it'll go away, everything will go back to normal? Or do they have to actually face this head on and come up with ideas and solutions?
I think it's a great question and very current. There are different ways to answer this question. My favorite ways is to change a little bit the mindset. We were talking about this growth mindset. And the growth mindset is a mindset that can be applied to an organization and to individual leaders. And we have a need to develop leaders and managers that are able to not only show empathy, to have that kind of bimodal way of functioning, showing empathy, but at the same time, think like scientists. And I know I'm a social scientist, so it's easy for me to say that. But the idea is that thinking like scientists means not relying on opinions in order to be able to handle these type of situations. We don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if this is a phase. I don't know if it will stay. I don't know if people work better from home in the office. I don't know if they are feeling better from home in the office. As scientists and leaders as scientists, the way they will approach this is to say, let's make a few hypotheses. Let's try to understand what are the potential ways in which this could go. And then let's do a set of very small-scale experiments. Let's try to gather data on, well, what happens if we let people go home 2 days per week on, Wednesday and Friday. And then we collect data on how they feel, on how that affects the productivity. And then we try another experiment in which we force them to come back to the office. And only by gathering this information can we learn. We're not in a phase of life of organizations that we've already went through and we exactly know what we should do. So the best way for me to handle this situation is to learn from it and to learn as we go and to become much more intelligent as managers in order to get the necessary information to make those decisions.
I would like to know from Professor Kroemer and Christian Klein also if you're actually faced with that kind of change coming from the, if you like, the demand side, the employees, the doctors, the nurses, or even, the management at SAP. Is that something that you are confronted with? Is that something you have experience with? And is this perhaps something good that helps to drive innovation, or do you see it as something that hampers it? Christian Klein.
Me first. Look, just yesterday, actually, we had an all-hands at SAP only about diversity and inclusion, because we are doing business in over 130 countries, and so we are serving a lot of different societies, cultures, religions, and SAP has to be a mirror of that. And what also came into that, it doesn't need to be, it's not good enough to only be diverse, you also need to be inclusive, because otherwise the young talents come in and they walk out the other door if you're not giving them the platform to grow their career, to speak up, and give also the minorities a chance to grow inside SAP. And then it also came up to our pledge to flexibility. So we said, we want to give you the trust, because not every Wednesday or Friday, maybe it's the day where your kids are at home or that the kindergarten is not home. Myself, and this morning, I brought my little one to the kindergarten and it was good. And then I did 2 more meetings virtually, and then I came here to Berlin. It's a beautiful day, and so virtual. But tomorrow, actually, I'm being in the office because we have a board meeting, and we are talking about sustainability, about the green ledger, how we code it, how we sell it, how we service it. And there I would like to be there, because this is a very intense topic where teamwork is required, and this is where I would prefer to be in the office. And what I always tell my employees when it comes to pledge to flex, home office is great and take your freedom, but my career, a lot of other careers at SAP would not have been possible only from the home office. You need to network, you need social contacts, and this is also very important. And as coding software is a team sport, and this is why, yes, putting trust to our employees, but also reminding them that there's a lot of value of being in the office, while there are maybe some days where you can also work from home.
Professor Kroemer, is that an issue at all, or is this a different planet we're on at the moment in this discussion for you?
No, not at all. I mean, Charité in Berlin has close to 20,000 people working with us, so we're kind of a mirror of the Berlin society. And of course, we have exactly the same requests and the same discussions in our place. On the other hand, it's readily imaginable that if you do patient care, then the home office is somewhat self-limiting, because you have to have nurses and doctors really treating patients. So for Charité, it's very clear that we will not have a solution for our entire company, but we'll have to find individual solutions for different work groups, and as in particular the human part of what we do plays a major role. I think it's very clear that we have to have people really working in our place, and to cope with that, we try to drive digitalization as much as we can, so that everything which has not necessarily to be carried out from humans with humans should be digitalized. We are trying to do that. On the other hand, I'm always saying that we try to avoid kind of the Teslarization of medicine, which happened kind of to other parts of our industry. So we're in the middle of a strong discussion. For that, we've made, like everybody, we've made a strategy, and the strategy is called Rethinking Medicine, has been published. because we are absolutely convinced that in 10 years from now, medicine will be completely different from what we do today, and we try to prepare for that.
And may I
yes,
add
please.
one thing, because I'm just coming from the future work of the BDA in Berlin a couple of hours ago, and I'm really a little bit upset that this question of future work is sometimes just reduced on the question of home office. For the transformation, we need focus, we need identification, we need qualification of the people, we need creativity, we need collaboration. I think Ola Kalenius already referred to that. And with the chance we have now, bringing people back to the office, I think we have to rethink the whole work environment. We have to rethink the whole way of collaborating. And I think Roland Busch mentioned it, it's a culture question. And we can do much more out of this than just discussing how many days in home office. And be real. At the end of the day, we have to go through this transformation, and we need the people to go through this. And this is a major topic of the company. Right. And of course, we want flexibility. We use hybrid and virtual and physical work, and we combine it in the best possible way for the different teams.
Then let me just follow. When you say we need a culture change, where do you start? Kindergarten, or with your people at work? Where does the culture change start? It's again one of those buzzwords. If we break it down.
Okay.
You wanted to follow up. I remember my question.
Just one remark to Professor Kroemer. I was actually recently at the University of Heidelberg, and they showed me how they did the knee surgery, from home, and the roboter did all the work on site. But I also said I would prefer if someone is on site. So, despite coming from the technology industry, so when do we start? I guess Ilka is right. It's not only a question of home office and being on site, but where it starts with, it actually starts with the leadership. If we from the executive board of SAP, don't show how the future of work can look like, the people will not follow, and it's a leadership question. And what we did, besides only the question of being at home or being at work, I guess it's very important that we also show, of course, embrace technology. It's very important to feel the sentiment of people, of the employees in such crisis. The Ukraine was super emotional. Of course, also the home office, the stress level went up. So we also need to embrace then technology and show, hey, how can we make sure that everyone is feeling well, and how diverse and inclusive we actually are, and then also take decisive measures and actions. And that all has to come from the top. This is for me also about leadership, I would say. Yeah.
And sticking to that, Eric Quintane, so because we've heard earlier, so empathy is very important for good leadership, but also, you need to basically set an example, and you need to know where the company, where the business is headed, and what is necessary in order to get there. That might sometimes then be in confrontation or at odds with the empathy part, because maybe it's not going hand in hand. So what's the right balance? What kind of skill set does a leader need for the next 10 years and beyond to get this transformation going?
Yeah, so skill set is a difficult thing to acquire, and I agree with you that there seem to be conflicting demands placed on leaders who need at the same time to demonstrate that they are hearing their employees, to have that empathy, but also being able to say no and to drive a direction and to stick to that direction, knowing that that not everybody will be happy with that specific direction. I think the skill set is still very compatible, because being able to say no in a way that is meaningful to others, that is respectful to others, is still part of the skill set of empathy, of perspective taking, of being able to relate a no decision or a decision to not go in a specific direction, not to a person, but to a specific idea or to a specific project. So that skill set is really about being able to relate to other employees and other human beings in a way that consider the difference, that understands the difference between the work and the decisions that have to be made for work and the individual that is proposing those changes and those decisions.
I have a very quick look into this room because we have 3 minutes and you could ask a question. There is a question. There's a gentleman in... There are 2 gentlemen. Let's start with this one. The hand was up earlier and then move over there.
Christian Stadermann, based in Berlin. I have a question on empathy, as this was mentioned by 2 out of 4 panel participants. Everybody who needs to lead people needs empathy. We agree on that, but we are never trained for it, neither in school nor in university. Should we give a focus to empathy in our education system? And if yes, how would you do it?
Who would like to have a go at that? Professor Kroemer, you can also answer. I'll try and keep an eye on it.
Yeah, we can argue on that. I personally think that empathy is something which offers a limited amount of being able to learn that. We should see whether it's feasible to really teach these things. And let me just add one of the things which hasn't mentioned as a central ability of leading persons. I think is, from my point of view, really the ability to listen in times of change, to really carefully listen to people. This is something which is also not trained during our education, but I think it's of major importance.
That's the reason why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Very well spotted. The microphone has in the meantime reached our next participant. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, dear panelists. I'm a CEO of a small company, small business, but we still want to make some sustainable transformation for our small production. And the question is maybe like a quick question for you. What do you think is an advantage of being a small or medium enterprise on a way to sustainable transformation? So maybe what you are missing, because your companies are huge, but many companies are small or medium. So what do you think is their advantage?
Very nice. Who would like to go first? Let's go with Christian Klein.
I would say you definitely have the benefit of being very agile. You don't need to, communicate changes in strategy, changes in the business model to 100,000 of people, because when you're doing such changes, you even as a CEO, I can make those decisions with the board, but if I don't convince my employees, if I don't convince my shareholders, it will be a pretty tough ride. So you have the agility, you have the speed, you can also try something. And when I look at now some of my colleagues here, when you are changing an existing company and an existing business model, that comes sometimes with huge consequences on the financial markets. You have to deal with the workers' council and so on. And this benefit, what you have is that you can do this more from a greenfield approach, and you need to use this agility. Try something. Even if you fail, do it again. Try the next. And we are all doing mistakes. And sometimes mistakes, when you are running such a company of that size, you obviously getting much more criticized. Yeah? But you have the freedom to do that and give you also your people the freedom to do mistakes. And let's try it again, and then it will work.
But Christian, I think there's one commonality between big and small companies. I think in the future, you will be measured by the question whether you're not the best in the world, but the best for the world. And I think that's a point what Ola Canenius already touched. It's a 360 approach of ESG. It's a both and not an or. And I think this is what you have to keep in mind also for a small company.
And I have to break in. Time is already up, but we finally got one question from our online audience, and I don't want to forget the online audience. So very, very quickly, and a quick answer, anyone. In regards to sustainable transformation and how we embrace it, how should millennials prepare themselves to contribute to this transformation? And that question is from Taha Wise from the online audience. It was sent, so I think I was supposed to also mention that. So, the role of the millennials. Who would like to have a go? Who hasn't said anything in the last couple of minutes? Eric Quintane.
So, could you repeat the question? So, the role of the millennials in the transformation.
Okay. In regards to sustainable transformation and how we embrace it, how should millennials prepare themselves to contribute to this transformation?
I think I want to go back to that concept or the idea of the growth mindset. I think for me, that's the best way right now to be preparing yourself for any transformation process. And the growth mindset was very well explained is this idea that you need to engage in lifelong learning and come with an acceptance that you will have failures, make mistakes, and that you need to learn from those mistakes. It's the idea that if you start with a fixed mindset, you might be to have higher performance right now, more clever, but over time, you're not going to be able to adjust and transform at the same pace as the rest of the world is. So that would be my recommendation.
And challenge us as leaders. I think there's a lot of energy in the young people in our company, in all the companies. We should use it.
I think that's a nice final statement to a very interesting panel discussion. Professor Kroemer, thank you so much for joining us. It was good to have you on board. Eric Quintane, Christian Klein, and Ilka Horstmeier. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.